I made a list of the top questions that people have when it comes to electrolytes and hydration. The first question is, what are electrolytes? Well, electrolytes are specific minerals such as sodium, magnesium, and potassium, and they are responsible for sending electrical charges to the body to help the muscles contract, relax, to perform. They're also very important in transporting nutrients throughout the body. And we obviously know, but what are the most common symptoms of being deficient in electrolytes? Well, obviously, it's going to impact your performance and recovery. You're going to experience things like cramps, uh, low energy, fatigue. These are all types of issues that you can have from having low electrolytes or being deficient in electrolytes. The other question that people might have is, what is the most important mineral when it comes to electrolytes? There's sodium, magnesium, potassium. There's also calcium. That's really not talked about because it's really not important at all. But let's go through the list of all the minerals and figure out what's most important and what should it have the most of. Well, we need to go back to what the body actually does when it sweats. When you sweat, you lose two things predominantly more than any other thing, and that is water and sodium. So it's important that these two things need to be the priority and make the bulk of your electrolyte beverage. So when you're looking at electrolytes, you need to ensure that there's at least 500 milligrams of sodium in it. Now, why 500 milligrams of sodium? This is just based on the average amount of sodium, milligrams of sodium, that a person is going to lose throughout their physical activity in about a 1 hour training session. It could be a training session, it could be a sport, and you have to note that it's going to vary by person according to their size, their weight, their sweat ratio. There's so many things that are going to impact how much sodium a person loses. But on average, a person is going to lose anywhere from 500 to about 1,000 milligrams of sodium in their training sessions or in their sports. So if your electrolyte powder doesn't have much sodium, it's hard to really classify that as a electrolyte or a hydration beverage, right? So the first thing you want to look for is, a good amount of sodium. The second thing that your body loses, besides water, because obviously water is important, water and sodium, right, is going to be potassium. Now there's mixed, there's mixed thoughts on exactly how much potassium your body loses. But what we know as a general rule is that you want your potassium to be about 3 to 5 times less than the amount of sodium. And the reason why that is because potassium is like a lever, right? And that lever is designed to optimize and maintain the amount of sodium that your body needs at a given time. So if you have a certain amount of potassium and then you have your sodium is allowed to regulate and say, hey, this is how much sodium we need to keep in the body, or we need to excrete some of the extra excess sodium that we have. If you have too much potassium or more potassium than you have sodium, your body's just going to be telling itself to just dump that sodium. And then you're going to get cramps again. You might feel hydrated initially, but you're going to start having cramps again. And then magnesium also is a very important mineral, but when it comes to specifically to hydration, performance, it's just not something your body is losing. You're not losing copious amounts of magnesium. So it's best to focus to get magnesium from your food, or maybe supplementing it later in the day, especially when you're relaxing or when you are maybe getting ready to go to bed. And that's because magnesium is just not something that the body is gravitating towards when it comes to hydration and performance. It's more so of a recovery thing. But it also does play a role. But this idea that you're going to have a lot of magnesium in your electrolyte powder just doesn't make sense because your body isn't using it enough. Now, when you look at a lot of these electrolyte powders, there's a lot of different ingredients you'll see on the back of them. And it took me time to really get an understanding of what these ingredients are and why they're in there. One of the ingredients that are in there in a lot of electrolyte brands is citric acid. So people ask us, what is citric acid? Well, I thought citric acid was just acid that comes from citrus fruits, but that's how it used to be. Because we have so many products, people are selling so many consumer packaged goods. It's citric acid, which technically comes from citrus fruits. There isn't enough citric acid to generate from fruit that we can put in all our products. So what a lot of people do is that they'll create citric acid from a synthetic form. And that's created in the lab by using different strains of mold, one of them most notably being Aspergillus niger, also known as black mold, to create this acid. And then they basically purify it and get it down to something that is food safe, right? And there's debates on whether citric acid is really safe, the synthetic form that is, and whether it isn't. I would say that it's best probably to avoid it, just because we don't know the long-term effects of it. There's a lot of things that the food industry will deem as safe, but then years later we find out that maybe not so safe. So it's up to you if you want to, choose a product, an hydration product that has citric acid in it. I personally try to stay away from it. Some people can report having some gut issues with it, but that's just really up to you. You are going to be your best decision maker. Now, the other thing that a lot of electrolyte brands have in their ingredients is natural flavors. Now, what are natural flavors? Because there's no definition of natural flavors. And when people say natural flavors, or it's on the back of a label, you don't know what makes up the natural flavors. So by definition, first of all, let's talk about the reason why natural flavors are so popular, right? Because before there used to be artificial flavors. What's the difference between an artificial flavor and natural flavor? Well, you would think that a natural flavor means that it comes directly from a fruit, right? And there's nothing else added to it. But that is false. You see, natural flavors just means that it needs to originate from a natural source. So if I have something that's called strawberry, that means that it had to originate from the fruit strawberry, but that doesn't mean I can't add a bunch of other chemicals in it. See, you can add up to 100 chemicals to that strawberry flavor and still call it natural strawberry flavor because it originated from the strawberry. But what are all those other 99 to 100 chemicals? We don't know. It could be a slew of many things. And this is the challenge that I have with the natural flavors, is because we just don't know what's in it. It's protected. And the only difference between natural flavors and artificial flavors is that artificial flavors can have more than 100 chemicals in them. Natural flavors can't have more than 100 chemicals in them. So are they really that different? I'll let you be the judge of that. Now, there's another big question that people have when it comes to electrolytes and hydration. And it's, what is this whole thing about zero sugar electrolytes, zero sugar hydration, and all these non-nutritive sweeteners that people are putting in replacement of real sugar? Well, you have to understand that sugar was blamed for everything for a long time. And I personally think this is from, people using copious amounts of sugar or using very dangerous forms of sugar. An example, there's going to be things such as corn syrup. Corn syrup has been used for lots and lots, many years in many products, including hydration products. And what they found is that, it really spikes your blood sugar. It doesn't have any nutritional benefit, and it's really easy to consume a lot of calories when you have corn syrup. Or if you just put too much sugar in something, it obviously makes it taste really good. It makes it easier to sell because people want to keep drinking it or eating it, but that doesn't mean it's better for you. Sugar is a tool, and just like any tool, it can be used correctly or incorrectly. And when it comes to hydration, sodium and glucose, sugar, is actually very important and very powerful when it comes to hydration and performance. See, your body doesn't want to perform without any calories. It can, technically, but doesn't mean that's what's most optimal. No. When you're a performance athlete or you're running, you're hiking, you're expending calories, energy, your body needs some calories to help continue for it to perform and to recover, right? Otherwise, we would all just drink all the water and breathe air and we would be completely fine. So don't fear electrolytes with sugar. It's about the kind and the amount. And cane sugar, just regular pure cane sugar, is less processed. It actually has a lower glycemic index than white rice. And a lot of these electrolyte brands that have no sugar in them are using things like dextrose, sucralose, which is another word for Splenda. And while they don't may not have any calories in them, they still can act in the same way as real sugar, but having an even higher response rate to your insulin. This is going to vary by each person. And the other thing about non-nutritive or no sugar alternatives is that they can make the body crave sugar later in the day. So you're kind of like you're sacrificing yourself in the short term of the day or the beginning of the day or when you consume that thing, but then you're now having cravings for sugar and sweet things later in the day. So you end up eating those things anyway. And you end up over consuming sugar, over consuming calories, and carbohydrates. And this obviously results in poor health. So what they did, a lot of these brands did, is that they said, we're just going to take sugar out of it, but we're going to make things taste like sugar. But the problem is they don't still are not connecting the dots that these things that taste like sugar are triggering response in the body to crave sugar in the future. You see, fruits like watermelons, bananas, oranges, they all have sugar in them. They also are very good for electrolytes. And if you add a little salt to them, you basically have a complete electrolyte source. But not everyone wants to be carrying a banana, a watermelon, an orange all around them. It's not always very convenient, not always able to get it fresh. So these are one of the reasons why electrolytes can be very beneficial because it negates the need to have all these fruits and carrying salt around with you. So when it comes to sugar, the most optimal range when it comes to the serving amount is going to vary a little bit. But in order for this sodium glucose, they call it sodium glucose cold transport. In order for that pathway to be activated, you need to have at least 2 grams of sugar. Now, if you look at the most optimal range, though, it's between 10 and 12 grams of sugar. That's what optimizes. And then once you start to go over 14 grams of sugar, that's when you come to a point where you're no longer getting benefit. And you're potentially can be, really messing up your hydration because your body, when you have too much sugar, then your electrolytes start to, become even more of a need, right? So don't fear sugar in hydration. Don't fear fruits. Don't fear clean sources of sugar. If it's just pure organic cane sugar or even pure sugar, it's going to be better than corn syrup. It's going to be better than dextrose. So just make sure that you're really looking at these ingredients and watching how your body responds to them. So the other question that people will have when it comes to electrolytes is, when do I take them? And there's no specific rule on this. It's really going to be based on what you feel your body needs at any given time. Some people find themselves quite dehydrated in the morning, but this can be to a certain amount of factors. It could be what you did last night. Were you drinking? Were you not consuming enough water throughout the day before? What kind of foods were you eating? Were you sweating? What kind of climate were you on? What kind of sweat rate do you have? There's a lot of different factors. So there's no like rule that you need to take hydration. You have to take electrolytes in the morning. You got to take them before your workout. You might or may not. It might be beneficial to you or not. But if anyone is out there telling you you must take electrolytes right in the morning when you wake up, they're BSing you because they don't know your body. They don't know what you got going on. They don't know what you ate the previous night or day or anything like that. So you really have to listen to your body. Now, depending on the activity that you're doing, it can be beneficial to take some electrolytes in the morning, especially if you feel dehydrated, if you feel you need it, or you got an intense workout or session or trip or something going on that day. That could be a beneficial time to take it. You can also take it maybe during your workout where you sip on it periodically. Like if you're doing a run, you're doing a long endurance type of training. This could be bike riding, it could be hiking. It could vary on a person, but there's no exact timing to take electrolytes. You could also take them after your training, to help you recover, especially, while you're uh, in process of getting some food to, refuel the body. So don't listen to any specific messaging that's saying that you have to take electrolytes at a certain time. They don't know your body. They don't know what your performance goals are. So those are some of the questions that people have when it comes to hydration and electrolytes. And if this video was helpful to you, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, share it to somebody else you think could benefit from this.